Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you might be, and welcome to a post on statistics. It's called Bayesian Blues. Young people learn how to analyze data from experiments with Bayesian statistics. They learn to propagate uncertainty, and they learn to benchmark these calculations with measurements. When they leave the laboratory, they are often asked to apply these methods to new data sets that cannot be benchmarked with measurements. One type of Bayesian analysis that is popular with data scientists involves teasing out correlations from networks and predicting how those networks will change while preserving uncertainty relationships. They attempt to predict the future while preserving error bars. But any sane person understands that your prediction of the future will only be as good as your understanding of the past, and we never have perfect knowledge of the past. Thus, the assumption that Bayesian error propagation preserves uncertainty relationships might be very wrong on a network because error in the estimate of uncertainty might accumulate when faulty assumptions about initial conditions compound. This becomes especially problematic when only a tiny subset of data scientists understands that Bayesian analysis of a network assumes known initial conditions, something that is rarely present in a data set, and when only a tiny subset of a community understands the limitations of their primary analysis technique, this calls into question every result produced by that community. Is this what happened when statisticians at 538.com predicted that Hillary Clinton would win the last election? I studied that site religiously in the run-up to the election, hoping against hope that statistics would prove my intuition wrong. It didn't. The problem with assuming known initial conditions on a network and then propagating uncertainty relationships across the network would be understood intuitively by a physicist who has studied, for example, the local fields of a network of electric circuits, as in a quantum computer, because they know that nonlinearities combined with their lack of knowledge about initial conditions prevents them from predicting the precise layout and development of the microstates of the network. One might think that every physicist trained to analyze networks of particle detector data at a facility like CERN would understand the limitations of this method. But I have learned that the opposite is true. Some have been trained to place false confidence in Bayesian statistics. Here's a quote from an article written at CERN called Bayesian Reasoning in High-Energy Physics, Principles and Applications. He writes, "Ultimately, when we teach the frequentist orthodoxy, not only because of intellectual inertia, tradition, and the rest, but also because, like good con artists, we can get away with it. And that I find very disturbing. I must agree with Basso's dictum that nothing in orthodox statistics makes sense without a Bayesian interpretation. If, as is the case, the only thing one can say about frequentist methods is that they work only insofar as they don't violate the likelihood principle, and if they don't, and they frequently do, they numerically agree with a Bayesian interpretation, with some flat prior, then we should go ahead and teach the real thing, not the substitute." Did he accidentally reverse the words orthodox and Bayesian in this quote? In many circles, Bayesianism has become orthodoxy, and his statement that it is more intuitive than orthodox frequentist approaches is frankly baffling, because it's not more intuitive, it's more counterintuitive. It detaches the user of the system from their basic intuition. This tendency in physics and in mathematics to create tools that are incomprehensible to those who use them is disturbing. It is only within non-physics communities like psychology and biology that the more straightforward frequentist orthodoxy is the norm. I hold out hope for a brighter future, since some still understand the limitations of Bayesian statistics. Here's another quote from an article written at CERN on particle identification in ALICE, which is a detector there. In all cases, the results using Bayesian particle identification were found to be consistent with previous measurements performed by ALICE using a standard particle identification approach. For the measurement of a pion decay, it looks like, it was found that a Bayesian particle identification approach gave a higher signal-to-background ratio and a similar or larger statistical significance when compared with standard particle identification selections, despite a reduced identification efficiency. This is somewhat worrisome to me because it appears that the Bayesian approach makes the error of the measurement look artificially lower than it looked with an orthodox frequentist approach. In essence, it created false confidence in a result. Is there any alternative to the Bayesian or frequentist analysis? If there were, we could, maybe come to a conclusion about which is better. But there aren't any that I know of. Some might suggest fuzzy logic, which is a mathematical technique used in control system engineering. But the mathematical definitions of fuzzy logic are themselves rather fuzzy. It is just a tool that works for certain systems, not a rigorous mathematical framework. Then again, if a tool works, doesn't that mean that it corresponds to reality better than tools that don't work? Or tools that we can't even benchmark or verify? Those are the ones I'm worried about. My takeaway is, don't play with these toys unless you are unsure that you understand all of them, and I'm pretty sure that nobody understands all of them. Despite our best efforts, most kids today don't understand any of them, yet they are trained to take user-friendly mathematical tools based on them and apply them to huge data sets to give us predictions about the future. If you have the right software package today, you can discover new worlds. And in my blog post, I've linked to a video about a 17-year-old who discovers a brand new planet. Maybe I'll play that.
This high school kid just did something out of this world.
I discovered a planet.
He's not kidding. 17-year-old Wolf Sukier actually discovered a planet 1,300 light years away.
It's pretty exciting.
The planet is 7 times larger than planet Earth.
What's interesting about this planet is that it orbits 2 stars.
Okay, I've had enough of that. So what I take away is they have a tool which looks for slightly wobbly starlight, and then it infers that the wobbles correspond to a planet. When I started my doctoral work in accelerator physics, most students were encouraged to run simulations of the machine by using software packages that had been written and benchmarked by more experienced physicists. By using these tools to predict how the machine would behave, students gained an illusion of empirical power and an understanding. It was only after I learned how to write my own simulations from scratch that I started to understand the limitations of the tools that everyone else was using. In accelerator physics, you have a relatively closed system that can be used to perform experiments and benchmark your application of relativistic classical mechanics. But even then, you can fool yourself. In fact, physicists fooling themselves with a complicated machine is a central theme in 2 of the novels I've written. Ah, the limitations of the scientific method. It is the stuff of low comedy. The situation gets even worse in the world of big data, astronomy, and climate science, where there are no closed systems, and when people are the variables under investigation, predictions are invalidated when they are revealed to the subjects of the predictions. My takeaway is, when it comes to Bayesian statistics, caveat emptor. There are some who have managed to, they say they've been able to solve the market, for example, hedge funds, by using huge amounts of data from the past and employing sophisticated analysis of it to make predictions about what it's going to do in the future. And they've made money from this. But a rising tide lifts all ships. So you have to ask, which piece of information are they really exploiting when they win this sort of game? It's an interesting question, but not a particularly scientific one because it's very hard to benchmark when the loop is open as it is in a market. It's an open loop problem. Okay. I'll draw this to a close. The past few posts I've made on climate science, particle physics, and quantum mechanics education have all been rather negative, pessimistic about the state of human knowledge and understanding. And if you are a scientist, they may make you feel rather sad. They made me sad, but I cheer myself up by singing sad songs, and that is how I will conclude this post. If you scroll to the end of the... Okay, what was the song? The Bayesian Blues. This is a jazz song called The Masquerade is Over. If I can... Your eyes don't shine like they used to shine, and the thrill is gone when your lips meet mine. I'm afraid the masquerade is over. It's all over. And so is love. And so is love. And so is love. I guess I'll have to play mariachi and get myself a clown's disguise, for then I'll learn to laugh like mariachi, with tears here in my eyes. You look the same. You're a lot the same. but my heart says no. No, you're not the same. I'm afraid the masquerade is over. It's all over, and so is love. That was a breakup song. With science, no. We all go through such phases. Every relationship goes through such a phase. But dealing with how you feel about it is important in order to help yourself see the situation clearly. Thank you for watching this video. Until next time, please tune in for my next videos.